course they wouldn't. So I'm going to go through 4 tips for you for leadership, and the good news is they're all free of charge. In a way, really early on in my career, I just turned 21, finished my apprenticeship at Rockwell Thompson down in Ettingshaw, that I was actually practicing leadership the Virgin way even at that age. And the story I'd just like to quickly tell you is, I always call it the Fred story. I qualified as an accountant at 21, and my first task as a qualified accountant was to do a thing called a post-investment appraisal. And I had to go down to the shop floor, and I worked at Rockwell Thompson just down in Ettingshaw, big motor pressings company. And we'd invested a fortune in a thing called a heat sink table. And all it was a big lump of metal with gas burners underneath, and it was there to stop a 30-foot metal side member from bending when it was pressed. So you didn't have to do a straightening operation on it. And the thing didn't work very well. So I had to do this appraisal, and I walked down, and around this heatsink table was our engineering director, MD, 2 engineers, the manufacturers, all looking around this table trying to figure out what was going wrong. And I walked up to the press operator, Fred, who'd looked after me in my apprenticeship, and I asked him what was going on. And in his black country drawl, he says, "Bloody thing doesn't work." I said, "Oh." I said, "And what are these guys doing?" "They'll never figure it out." I said, "Well, what's going on?" He says, "Well, look at where they've put it." And this table was right next to a roller shutter door. And every time the door went up, a gust of cold air came across the table and ruined all the settings. So the thing never worked properly. I said, "Oh, right. And how do you fix it, Fred?" He said, "Just put a screen up, it'll be fine." And I said, "Have you told them?" And he said, "No." So I asked him, "Why haven't you told them?" "Because they haven't asked me." So the first lesson is always listen to what your staff and your people have to say. So Richard's first tip for leadership would be, look for leaders who listen to both employees and customers. And I have to say, my time at Virgin Trains, by simply listening to our fantastic frontline teams, has generated tremendous results for the business. Another example of that is we stop at a station called Runcorn, which is the last stop before we get to Liverpool Lime Street. The station was run down, quite dilapidated, staff weren't very happy. In fact, the only reason we stopped there was to put some time into the journey, so we didn't catch up with the slower trains in front of us. Because if we went out a bit too quick with our Pendolinos, we catch all the local services up, and trains aren't good at overtaking. So I was talking to the station manager there, and I could sense he wanted to tell me something. So I said, "What's your thoughts about Runcorn?" And 45 minutes later, he'd outlined a fantastic strategy for Runcorn Station. He'd done his own research around the market potential for that station. He'd looked at the road connections. He'd even worked out what the station we needed to spend on the station in order to improve the quality of it. So I asked him, I said to him, would you produce a business case for us? And he said, yes. I said, what do you need from me? And he asked for an accountant, project manager, a guy from the revenue team to help him firm up on his numbers. And he presented this business case to our board, and it was fantastic. And I also asked him, would you be willing to project lead it if it gets the go-ahead? And he said yes. And that 45-minute conversation where I simply listened to what he got to say generated a business case, an investment program worth about £2 to £3 million, but it increased our revenue annually, incrementally, by £25 million a year. And there was us thinking Runcorn was just there to take time, put time on the journey time so we didn't catch up with trains. So that was a very valuable 45 minutes of listening. But to listen properly requires a lot of the leader's time. So how much time do you, as leaders, spend listening to your frontline teams? When I took over as CEO back in 2004, I spent 3 days out of 5 for a period of 2 years out with the frontline teams, working with them and helping them to shape our business. And that was a big commitment. Importantly, I was given time and space by Virgin to do this. I guess Richard actually listened to me, which was comforting. Engaging with the frontline isn't easy, as I've said, in particular when they have only known a transactional style of leadership, which was characterised within British Rail. But here, a few very powerful questions you can ask your people will put them at ease. Questions such as, what would you do differently? That was the questions I asked the station manager at Runcorn. Followed by, what do you think would work? And then a question, what would you do if you were me? And the most powerful question of all, tell me more. And then, of course, listen, listen, listen to what they have to say. It's, of course, very much easier to listen when things are going well. It's a lot more difficult when things are going wrong in a business. However, when the things go wrong in a business or an organisation, it is often, in my view and my experience, because staff members are not being listened to, but instead leaders resort to, let's analyse the problem. We need to change the process. Let's get the consultants in rather than let's go and listen to the frontline staff and ask for their help. And this was a stark reality when Virgin took over the franchise in 1997. I wasn't there at the time. I joined in 99. But from the conversations I've had with people there, the very fact the Virgin brand was put onto the side of an old Mark III train set and had a coat of paint raised an expectation with the passenger that something was going to change. But it was going to take at least 4 to 5 years to get the new trains in. It was going to take a similar sort of time to get the track upgraded. So we raised an expectation because we had a brand that people recognised for customer service, for fun, for innovation, and it took us several years to deliver on that expectation. And if only Virgin had listened to the people, to the staff, they wouldn't have fallen into that trap. And it did damage the brand very, very badly in those early years. On a brand rating scale, we always aspire to beat Virgin Atlantic. And in a brand rating scale, they were scoring at the time plus 14. Virgin Trains were scoring minus 14 because we'd raised an expectation by putting the brand on the side of the train, which we couldn't deliver. And it took a lot of time and a lot of listening to the people to get the thing back on track. So we always listen to our people, and we are flooded and overwhelmed with fantastic ideas. So I guess the question then is, what do you do with all that information? Guess what? Here comes tip 2. If I can work the technology. So we've talked about listen. Tip 2 is have a vision. A business needs a vision. Let me put that slightly differently. The people in the business need to have a vision. What is it we exist for? What is it we want to do for our customers? But the key question is, whose vision is it? In our case, was it Sir Richard's vision for rail travel? Or was it mine? Or was it our people's? In Richard's autobiography, Screw It, Let's Do It, I was surprised to see him refer to a phone conversation we had together one Sunday afternoon. He was on Necker Island. I was in Sedgley. And one thing he is absolutely awful at is time difference. They're 5 hours behind Sedgley in Necker Island, and he always tends to ring when it's 1 o'clock in the bloody morning. But you have to take the call. I said to him in the conversation, I think we've lost the art of customer service. And he certainly follows tip 1. He listened to me. And then what I found out reading the autobiography, he also writes down what you say. The conversation went along these lines. Richard, when I said we'd lost the art of conversation, he said, tell me more. I said, we've got carried away with all the new trains and the PR events and forgotten why we're here, and that is to provide a great journey experience for the passenger.